Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson for Catholic Newsbreak. Here's what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from Rome. Pope Francis met with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI at the Papal Villa in Castel Gandolfo this past weekend. Traveling by helicopter from the Vatican, Pope Francis arrived shortly after noon, and Pope Emeritus Benedict was there to greet his successor. The two rode in the same car to the villa, with Pope Francis on the right, the spot reserved for the Pope, and Pope Benedict on the left. The visit began with a prayer in the chapel of the Papal Villa. As they entered, Pope Benedict indicated that Pope Francis should take the front pew. But Pope Francis, reaching out to help his predecessor walk, said, "We're brothers," and they knelt side by side. They then spoke for 45 minutes alone. Father Federico Lombardi, Vatican spokesman, said the details of their conversation would not be released. They then had lunch together and went for a short walk. The retired Pope moved with much greater difficulty than he did a month ago. Walking with a cane, he took smaller and slower steps. During their meeting, Pope Francis gave Pope Benedict an icon of Mary and Jesus that the Russian Orthodox delegation to his inauguration had given him just a few days earlier, saying that when the delegation told him the icon was of Our Lady of Humility, he thought of the retired pontiff because he had given us so many examples of humility and tenderness. While the two have spoken by telephone at least twice, this was their first meeting since Pope Francis's March 13th election. Pope Francis returned to the Vatican about 2.5 hours after he arrived. In news now from Italy, the Shroud of Turin will go on display this Holy Saturday in honor of the Year of Faith. Rome Reports has more on this special viewing.
In honor of the Year of Faith, the Shroud of Turin will be displayed once again inside the Dome of Turin on Holy Saturday, March 30th. The last time it was put on display for the public was more than 3 years ago. However, the visit is only open to a group of about 300, made up of youths and people who are sick or disabled. It will also be broadcast live. When Benedict XVI visited the Shroud of Turin in 2010, he called it an icon of Holy Saturday, which is why the Archbishop of Turin decided to put it on display for the Year of Faith.
Looking now at news from around the country, on his last leg of his 4-day visit to Israel and the Palestinian territories, U.S. President Barack Obama visited the West Bank city of Bethlehem. During his visit, he stopped twice to light candles for his family and himself at the Church of the Nativity Grotto, where Christian tradition holds that Jesus was born, and then at the Catholic Church of St. Catherine. Greek Orthodox Patriarch Theophilus III was the first to greet the American leader inside the Church of the Nativity, welcoming him as a messenger of peace and reconciliation. The Patriarch said that while in the Church of the Nativity, President Obama took a few moments of private prayer and contemplation. Obama was also greeted by other religious leaders at the church, including the custodian of the Holy Land, Franciscan Father Pier Battista Pizzabella. During the visit, he was accompanied by Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. The president then went on to pray at the Church of St. Catherine and spoke about the importance of keeping a Christian presence in Jerusalem. In news now from the Vatican. Beginning Holy Week at the Vatican, Pope Francis celebrated his first Palm Sunday Mass as Pope in St. Peter's Square. Before the Mass, young people carrying palms led a procession that included bishops, cardinals, and Pope Francis in the Pope Mobile. The Pope spoke to a packed St. Peter's Square, telling the faithful that Christ's death on the cross is a source of eternal consolation and joy. He said that because we have Jesus, we are never alone, even in the most difficult of times. So Christians, he said, can never be sad. Pope Francis also discussed Jesus' triumphant arrival in Jerusalem, acclaimed as a king. He said that Jesus entered the city to be scourged, insulted, and abused, and that his throne is the wood of the cross. He said Jesus takes on our sin and cleanses it with his blood and the mercy and love of God. And the Pope noted that for 28 years, Palm Sunday has been World Youth Day. He had an exciting message for the young people in the congregation regarding World Youth Day 2013 in Rio de Janeiro.
Cari amici, anch'io mi metto in cammino con voi da oggi sulle orme del Beato Giovanni Paolo II e di Benedetto XVI. Ormai siamo vicini alla prossima tappa di questo grande pellegrinaggio della croce. Guardo con gioia al prossimo luglio a Rio de Janeiro. Vi do appuntamento in quella grande città del Brasile. Preparatevi bene, soprattutto spiritualmente nelle vostre comunità, perché quell'incontro sia un segno di fede per il mondo intero.
After Mass, before praying the Angelus from the altar set up in front of the Basilica, the Pope made special mention of people afflicted with tuberculosis, as Sunday was the World Day against this disease. And finally in the news, a referendum will be put on the North Dakota 2014 ballot that would amend the state constitution to say that the inalienable right to life of every human being at any stage of development must be recognized and protected. The legislature voted in favor of the measure on March 22nd. In an interview with Catholic News Service, Christopher Dodson of the North Dakota Catholic Conference said that the referendum does not ban abortion or anything else. It does, he said, provide an expression of legislative intent that would make it clear that there is not a right to an abortion in the state constitution and give courts guidance for interpreting state laws regarding life. Well, that is all the information we have for you at this time. Please stay with Catholic TV for more Catholic news. Until then, I'm Kevin Nelson, and I'll see you next time on Catholic Newsbreak.